do to deal with gender-specific everything. Because one of the issues that we have with the Virgin Islands, which is probably a similar issue just with different little tidbits of tentacles connected to it, is that we have a set of requirements to work with women. We have a different parameter for how we can work with women that is not designed by women. Therefore, what starts to happen is the cultural nuances that are particular to the Crucian community, St. Thomian community, St. Jonian community, and now Water Islands, since they include that as an integral part of the Virgin Islands, has a milieu of colonialism linked up in it. It has a milieu of a certain amount of racism linked up in it, as well as classism linked up in it. So it's very difficult. The sexist piece is like the overbearing part. That's like the extra sprinkles on top of chaos. So the main thing that we've had to do is to try to implement integrative methods so that we are able to work with the substance abuse piece, the health disparities piece, which is again linked to the substance abuse piece. We've had to be able to assist people with basic housing. We've been reaching out to those that are dealing with indigence, homelessness, and so forth. And now there's been an onslaught of criminality that is just making everyone go like, and I'm trying to explain to those that make that kind of assumption, how can we be surprised when the sovereign country that we're part of has the same reality? So they can't expect the fruit to do much different from, you understand what I'm saying? So that's been part of what has been instrumental to what we do, is to use culture, healing, arts, technology, spirituality that is culturally sensitive, but also historically accurate and correct to the best of our ability in sheets of paper. So we had to deal with some different adaptations. And I made sure I got permissions before I did that, because I wanted to be able to implement something, to then test it, to then have the criteria upon which to justify why we needed to do something different. So that's how NUWOMANRising began to go into a pilot approach, if you will. The action steps, thank you. No, you're fine. Okay, right. The action steps are what I spoke to. We use cultural activity, we use health-centered activity, and our health-centered activity, while the primary focus is naturopathic, our respect for allopathy and its diagnosis is always integrated in what we do. You know, I do not tell people just go and get bush tea and drink that and you'll be fine. I make sure that they go and get the proper diagnostic evaluations and examinations first. I also have a wonderful team, inclusive of our medical consultant here, Nurse Teray, Dr. Wendy Coram. She's one of our principal partners. Her company is called Coral Vista Corporation. She also has a practice, Nature Cure Healthcare, in St. Thomas. And what she does is she comes on a monthly basis, and as if it's needed, she'll come every two weeks, so she can do like all of the basic care. And what she's done thus far is she's done it pro bono, because there's some women that aren't able to afford or aren't comfortable going to the clinic. So she's been able to provide some services for us so that they can get at least the basic, you know, checkups, pap smears, things like that, so they can at least feel, and it's in a very nurturing environment. The idea is that we start with the will being self, and then we pretty much will go outward. So we deal with knowledge and assets, things that help you to be a stronger person so that you can actually deal with being able to be empowered. It's kind of hard to tell people to be empowered just because I said so. Even though I can be very motivating and do all kinds of wonderful things and do, you know, reflexology and, you know, hydrotherapy and all kinds of stuff with you, you have to get it so that it's intrinsic. So we do a variety of activities. It can be hiking, it might be swimming, sometimes we do just women's circles, sometimes we do talk fast, we don't even say anything. We just get together, we pamper each other's feet, we do the massage, we do facials with clay, we do like a whole manicure, pedicure, and we embrace women. I mean, even the women that come with the kind of feet that you might not want to really deal with right then, you just deal with it, because there's several of us that are practitioners dealing with various naturopathic modalities, and we're able to show them what it is to be nurtured first. And then it's easier for you then to self-nurture a lot, because someone is actually giving you some guidance on that. The other piece, you know, we deal with the media, all the family, the business opportunities, the churches, the NGOs, the schools. And the power piece, you'll notice, the power piece is what is in that last ring before people start doing all of the external stuff. And the power piece gets actually fortified through certain engagements with NUWOMANRising, as well as Live Up, and I'm going to explain Live Up. The young lady that formulated that, my daughter, Princess Newmont, she was so critical. Why are you doing all this for the women? What's going to happen to us? Right. So once and I told her my usual response to us, at that time 13, but now 16-year-old, was, this is the plan. If you know what you're supposed to be doing with the young ladies, I'm going to do what I need to do with the women, and then you document what you need to do with the young women. So she gave me a curriculum. But in the interim, what New Woman Rising has been able to do is to introduce some options and to introduce some negotiation strategies that individuals can use. And we've been doing a lot of work in schools, specifically secondary level. The next slide, please. This was pretty much what I'm doing now. The research piece, the program piece, the prevention piece, and the policy piece. Our issue in the VI is that although there's a certain amount of research being done, it's almost always not being done by individuals that are within the socio-milieu of the Virgin Islands. In regard to programming, we've been postulating, we are very confident that if we continue to use the New Woman Rising module as well as Live Up, and Live Up stands for Living Inspired, is Virtuous, and Edified, and United Princesses. That's the mind of 13, now 16-year-old. She wanted something that spoke to living up, because that's the new thing that a lot of the youth say. You know, some of them say, hey, I love. Some people will be like, what's going on? But the vibe now is live up or bless up. So the idea was to encourage that life force vibration and how they speak to each other and how they see one another as young women. So instead of me calling you the B word, or you better than me because you with my man that I was with last week, instead of having those kind of conversations, we start seeing each other, I am your divine reflection. So we say things like that in our actual interventions. The prevention piece, we have been so focused on treatment, even though the treatment has been, been marginalized to a certain perspective, and then we've had issues with our Department of Health having issues with, see it delicately. Our Department of Health needs modification, and it needs modification expeditiously. We've had situations where HIV positive patients were not afforded the opportunity to even get medication just because of paperwork, bureaucracy issues. We've had funds that have disappeared, in addition to other things that I'm sure you can. This is a picture that represents the women historically that were instrumental in self-determination and women's engagement in wellness, in freedom, in liberty and independence in the Virgin Islands. The first person represents Queen Brefu, who was a revolutionary in 1733 in St. John, and she was also known to be very knowledgeable on herbs, very knowledgeable on what was the role, engagement of women. She was such a strong fighter. Most of the time I thought she was a woman, a man, which was interesting. The second person represents Queen Mary, who was one of our local heroines, if you will. Yes. The third person represents Queen Keziah of St. Thomas. And again, we use this picture to really remind individuals to be able to connect their cultural experience with their health and wellness, with the arts that are central to their life existence, technology and spirituality.
New Woman Rising!
Live up. That's the whole idea of what we're trying to get across. Again, protections, sacred intentions, holistic institutions. If we don't do that, if we're not engaged in doing that, it's going to be very difficult to even be at the table talking about gender policy, gender programming. You understand? We're going to keep having these kind of realities with gender inequities that are going to just slap us in the face. And in the VI, it's really getting unbearable. So part of what we've been really working towards, we've had a tremendous amount of support from our delegate to Congress. Again, her office has been one of our partners as well. But more importantly, our issues that we're dealing with right now are to be able to have the policies formulated that can then be enforced so that we can get into the schools without having to do all of this creative navigation, so that it's clear that this is what's going on. And I believe, yeah. Thank you. Woo!
I actually have a question.
That was great.